after some games that he's had this year. It's, this is a game for him to look. You don't have to throw for 330 yards, but you do need to be productive, and you can't be turning the ball over.
Absolutely. We are getting to know Kirk, too. We're getting to see him in different situations. We're getting to know his personality. Let's talk a little bit about that. First, let's thank Twill in the Edina Galleria, TWILL.com. This is a remote show because my wife and I are taking a quickie mini break in Vegas before heading back for the Vikings game. And I wore my Twill stuff out to a nice restaurant last night. Yes, my wife dresses me. I admit it. But at least she dresses me in good stuff.
Jim usually doesn't like to shop for clothes. I don't like it when he shops for clothes either, because he used to buy stuff I'd want to throw out. That's why I'm so glad he's found Twill in the Edina Galleria. He likes shopping there because of the comfortable environment and the friendly staff. He finds clothes that actually fit him properly and are high-quality brands that will look great for years, whether he's golfing or working. Our favorites so far are Peter Millar, Johnny O, and Barber. We spend our money at Twill because we love the clothes and we love the no-pressure shopping. Drop by Twill in the Edina Galleria for the best shopping experience and best clothes you'll find in the Twin Cities.
So how's Kirk been this week?
He has been Kirk, which is, the second half of this season, just going back for a little bit to training camp, maybe preseason, he was very good about talking about different situations and things that he liked in an offense, but it seems as the season has unfolded and, probably not to his liking as, being as successful as he had hoped or to the fans' liking coming off of a 13-3 season last year with a different quarterback. It seems as we get into the second half of the season, he is preferring to talk in generalities and not completely taking responsibility for some of the mistakes in the offense. And, personally, if I have a quarterback, even if it's not always their mistake, I appreciate, pointing out what exactly happened. But you wonder sometimes how that plays with teammates. If you're supposed to be the leader and you are pointing out mistakes that other people have made while not always necessarily taking full responsibility for what I would consider mistakes that are really on Cousins. So, going to be interesting to see how this plays out as we get into the point of the season here where, it's not only win and get in, but if you do get in, every game is like that in the playoffs. And, people tend to pucker up a little bit in those situations. And that's where I feel like, maybe Cousins has been doing that a bit. Zimmer, is not as affable as he had been over the past few weeks. Things seem to be tightening up where people realize, one mistake here and there can cost them games and potentially jobs. I don't see that happening with Zimmer or with Spielman or with Cousins this year, but with Spielman and Zimmer going into contract years next year, generally they are given extensions at that point. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens if the Vikings aren't in the playoffs or if they're one and done. Are those extensions coming this offseason from the Will family? I don't know. That's going to be an interesting storyline to follow.
So much on the line. And you're right. And here's the weird thing. As media people, we ask questions and we appreciate when people are honest. But there are certain kinds of honesty that seem to be self-serving. And if someone consistently is saying that something went wrong, somebody else's fault, even if they're right, it's probably not going to play well. Because people do consume, players and coaches do consume media, whether they admit it or not, or whether they have somebody else do it for them, and they know what's being said.
Yeah, and Cousins essentially admitted that on Wednesday that, that people are going to criticize a quarterback and a highly paid quarterback of a team that was in the playoffs last year. The interception that he threw in the which game was the Dolphins game, where he explained it that he expected Minkah Fitzpatrick to be blocked and the screen pass to Diggs was intercepted in return for a touchdown. I appreciate him pointing out, okay, I expected it to be blocked. But what I don't think plays well is when you say, basically there was nothing I could do. I'm supposed to throw that ball. I'm supposed to negotiate the defensive end in that situation. And anything beyond that is not my fault. Well, I think there is an opportunity to read that the cornerback is coming up on Diggs and he's my intended target. Maybe this is a situation where, you throw the ball at Diggs' feet and it would have been a forward pass. So we're not talking about a similar situation where he threw the ball at Dalvin Cook's feet, but it was a backwards pass earlier in the season. No, I just think I appreciate mistakes being pointed out so you get a better understanding for what happened, but I don't like there's nothing I could have done on that play.
Right, absolutely. How much do you think the Bears are going to play their starters? Have they given any hints?
I think that most of them will play, but I do think when you're talking about injured players that probably would play in a playoff game, those are the type of guys that I tend to think may not see the field, like an Allen Robinson, which, that's going to hurt their downfield passing ability, or Eddie Jackson, who had the interception against Kirk Cousins earlier in the year. Those are the type of guys that I think may not end up playing. We'll have to wait and see what happens on Sunday, but my guess is you're probably not going to see those guys.
Interesting. And let's go to the injury report. First, do want to say a reminder, use the promo code FOOTBALL anytime between the time you hear this and the morning of January 2nd, and you'll get $5 off your BiteSquad.com order. You can go to Bite Squad, the app. Also, we can recommend a place if you're down in the Inver Grove Heights area at all and you want good comfort food and a good place to hang out, watch the game or any games this weekend. Go to Mississippi Pub, Inver Grove Heights. They have Beaver Island Brewing brews on tap. It's 4455 66th Street East, but it's better just to GPS it. You'll end up out by the river, a lovely view of the marina and the river. And Mississippi Pub, MississippiPub.com, does private parties. They have daily happy hours, appetizers and drink specials. They serve breakfast on Saturday and Sunday from 9 a.m. to 11:45 a.m. And they have fish fry Fridays. Go to MississippiPub.com and check them out. So let's get to the injury report because it's a fairly extensive one right now.
Yeah, the good news for the Vikings today was that Linval Joseph and Mike Remmers, who were out on Wednesday, both did some work today, and I would expect both of them to play. The bad news is that Eric Kendricks and Xavier Rhodes were out. Kendricks still dealing with a hamstring injury, and Rhodes a groin injury. Rhodes I may work back into the equation, but I think it helps that Holton Hill has been playing fairly well recently, especially for a rookie who was undrafted. So I think the Vikings, although they were forced into playing Hill more and more often than they would have wanted throughout the season, mostly because of Mike Hughes's injury, it's been good to see Hill develop a little bit more. So, we'll have to see if Rhodes is able to go. My guess is he will. C.J. Ham was not practicing with an elbow, which could have an effect given, Khalil Mack rushing off the edge. Maybe Ham would have been one of those guys to contribute every once in a while. And Marcus Sherrill's still out with a foot injury. He hasn't even been at practices this week. So the expectation would be, you'll have somebody like Brandon Zylstra or Chad Beebe back there fielding punts for the Vikings.
I found it interesting. I was in Detroit last Sunday, and I found it really interesting that Xavier Rhodes had a couple times ready to walk off the field after looking injured, and we asked Zimmer about it afterward, and he basically said that's just Xavier, and kind of with a chuckle. And now Xavier isn't practicing. So what's going on here? Has Xavier earned a reputation as being what's the word? I don't want to make him sound. I don't want to use the wrong word here because I do think that all NFL players get beat up severely during the course of a season, and I don't want to downplay that. But is he being considered by either the training staff or the coach to be a little fragile, or is there something going on between these guys, or is that Zimmer just kind of having fun with somebody?
Well, I think it's a little bit of Zimmer having fun, but this happened earlier in the season as well when it looked like a really serious injury. And I think at that time it might have looked like an ankle injury with Rhodes. or hamstring. I think he was grabbing. And, a little bit later, he's back in the game. Back in training camp, myself and Andrew Kramer were standing next to each other, and you would have thought Rhodes' season was done the way he reacted to an injury. Really limping off the field, kind of screaming in agony, and he was back a few plays later. So I think what we're seeing, it's crazy, and we've seen it play out at least twice since then in games, and the media sees it, Zimmer sees it, and I think that's why he said that's everybody kind of knows with Xavier that's just him. Now, one of these times you're going to have an injury to him where he's not able to come back or play through it, and it is something serious. But until that happens, the kind of the consensus is you really can't judge the severity of a Rhodes injury until you see whether he's back in the game later. And it's happened time and again this season. So whether it's, he feels a greater amount of pain initially than a lot of people, or what exactly the deal is, we just see a guy who's suffering some sort of injury that looks really serious and turns out to be not as serious as it was portrayed on the field. Really
interesting because he's a big, tough, strong guy. He's incredibly well conditioned. I just think, one thing I've learned in decades of sports writing is people have different levels of pain tolerance, and it has nothing to do with how you look or how hard you work out or anything else. Twins trainers used to tell me that Kirby Puckett would roll his ankle and run off the field and get it taped up and go back out like nothing ever happened. And they said they'd see another guy on the team roll their ankle exactly the same severity, come in and have to be out for 3 weeks. And it was all pain tolerance.
Yeah, I mean, we see it time and again. And, it was probably 15, 20 years ago where the Vikings had a defensive end. I think it was, I don't remember if it was Erasmus James or somebody else toward that same era, and suffered an injury on the field, was walking on it, and it turns out to be a torn ACL. And so you can't always tell by how a player's reacting how serious it is. All you can do is kind of report what you see and not try to speculate too much on the severity of the injury until you have a better diagnosis actually made.
Yeah, I know for my half-assed career as a lacrosse player, the most painful injury I ever had was a knee to the thigh that absolutely was nothing was broken, nothing was ruptured, nothing was strained. It just hurt like heck. And it was something you could play through, but it hurt more than anything else I ever went through. So you never know. Let's get to the Brad Childress angle. I always love it when we get to talk about Brad and the kick-ass offense. That's coming up next. Do you want to thank Fixology Repair, fixologyrepair.com. John Hedges is giving me great personal service right now, fixing my tablet, and I appreciate it. Again, downtown location in the Skyway, just south of the Wells Fargo Center, and the big location out at Mall of America, third floor by Nordstrom's. They have some sales on. They have some new watches in, Seiko brand. They also have some watches on sale that they are clearing out. You can get good deals there on accessories, watches, and, of course, repairs.
There are some things in life that you just can't live without. Now, whether it's a special piece of jewelry, a watch, or even your smartphone, you want it in working condition. At Fixology Repair, we are committed to restoring your pieces so that everything works or fits the way it ought to. Watch servicing, chain repair, and broken screen replacements are just a few of the services that we offer at Mall of America. Please visit us at fixologyrepair.com or at FixologyMN on Twitter to learn more. Mention this ad and get a 10% discount on our services.
All right, give me the Brad Childress angle.
Well, so I thought it was interesting, Matt Nagy, when he was hired as the Bears coach, decided that he wanted somebody else around for his first few months to kind of help not only with the players, but also with the new coaching staff that he had around him. So he basically hired Childress as an offensive analyst was the title that they gave him. And I don't know exactly how long he was there. My impression was a few months, helping out a little bit in the off season. But Nagy was asked about that on a conference call this week and said, he really appreciated that. Nagy and Childress both were in Kansas City under Andy Reid and both in Philadelphia where they got Nagy got his start anyway, under Reid there too. So I just thought it was interesting that you've got a former Vikings head coach